we are very honored, glad, and excited. Like you mentioned, after a long time. So Puneet, we
Yeah.
used to be colleagues a couple of years back. I think 7 years back or so. I don't remember exactly, but yeah,
Yeah,
good to see.
it was in 2013. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lot
2013.
of time, almost 10.
10 years now.
Yeah, 10
Yeah,
years now.
so
Yes.
excited to have you have you here, and have you talk to me about your brand new profile. And so for everyone here, sit tight till the end of the conversation, because we are going to cover a lot of ground. And by the end of this conversation, what we will all understand, including me, is what is knowledge management and how does it work as an option for people looking to transition from technical writing to knowledge management. So, like Puneet mentioned, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat box, and we'll take those up when we reach the Q&A part. And so, Enakshi, this session is so interesting that we already have a list of questions. So people have put in their questions when they registered for the event. Some of
Okay.
those I believe will be covered during our conversation, and some of the questions will take up once we are through the session today. So
Okay.
all of us are, I'm sure, pretty much excited to understand from you. From We want to know it in your words. I'm sure everybody has Googled what is knowledge management, or many of us would probably know what is knowledge management. But that would be, at least for me, it's just what Google tells me. So I want to know from you, Enakshi, what is management, and what are the roles that you have played till now throughout your career? You started from technical writing, and now you are a knowledge management specialist.
Yeah, so I will start from the beginning. Well, as most of Indian children, our generation, I took up engineering as my bachelor's degree. So back then, as science students, we either had engineering or medical. So I took up engineering, did my engineering in electronics, and after my fourth year, I got placed in Infosys. But again, the same. We faced this. Most of us faced this issue back then. The joining was delayed because we were hired in huge numbers. Like I think from a batch alone, 70 people were hired for Infosys. So we were, yeah. So my joining was delayed. So I was in the interim looking for a job in Mumbai, and also hoping to find something that is not related to coding or developing, because that's I would have I would have done anything to avoid that kind of role, because that's not why I took up electronics. So then I came after a few job applications. I came upon this technical writing uh, uh, role, and it was very interesting. It's like you need the know-how of coding, but yeah, you don't need to code. You need to write about the code or a software or a product. So it was very interesting. Explored that. Got my first job at Lionbridge as a technical writer. Then again, moved on to Golden Source. That's where I met Shrutika. Worked there for about 2 years. Then I moved to TCS. So the role in TCS was a little different from traditional technical writing. It was a lot of other stuff as well. I worked with marketing materials, also marketing resources. I presented at EBC for customers and prospects, and then I moved on to be the team lead for the technical communications team. So that was quite a journey of 4 years. And then after 4 years, I just felt like moving on to a more smaller company, a startup maybe, where there is a more. So I was missing the vibe that I had in Golden Source, where I had a very small, intimate team, and that we worked together. So that's what I was looking for. That's where Seclor came in. So it's a startup in Mumbai, and I joined as a part of the product management team. And well, the product management part uh, of the of of the company was very interesting. Although I was working as a technical writer there, I was very interested in product management. And when I did a bit of research, I realized that, yeah, so to be a product manager in India, you have to get an MBA done. So that was a trigger for me to go for a master's degree, because I was in that phase of mind where I wanted to change my profession from technical writing, move ahead, and product management seemed like a very enticing role, very interesting and enticing. So that's where the MBA part came into the picture. Again, took a couple of years to prepare, appear for exams, and well, just before the pandemic, I think beginning of 2020, I appeared for my entrance exams, and they were not very up to the mark. My scores were not really that good that I could get a very good premier institute in India. But so this was also by accident. SPJIMR in Andheri, they contacted me saying that they have this program called GMP, which is Global Management Program, where you do a part of your management degree in India with SPJIMR. They are a very good institute for business in India, and then the rest of it you get it in a collaboration with one of the institutes here in the Europe. So yeah, that's how I ended up here. And
Quite
after
a
I did
journey.
my yeah, quite a journey. It was all it was not exactly a planned thing, all of this.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's how I came to the NL to Netherlands. And Netherlands really is a very unexplored country. I would say for Indians, because not many people come here. And even when I was applying my MBA, I did not think that I would come here, but I did, and it has been really good so far. So how I moved to knowledge management is another very interesting story after my MBA. So the moment I finished my MBA, I was like, okay, fine, let's start, looking for jobs in product management, and that's what I did. I started looking roles in product management, but it is a different situation from India here. Here, the experience matters. Here, a degree or to say that you are an MBA is not, it has a value, but it's more the experience, what you have done earlier, that matters a lot. So, after a lot of understanding what exactly is suitable for me, what will be a more natural career progression for me, that's where I found knowledge management as a very suitable role. And also, I was very interested in analytics. I started getting very interested in analytics when I was doing my master's. So, uh, knowledge management is very data driven. So that's how I came upon knowledge management, applied for different roles, and then I started working at Bloomreach, where well, it was very new to me what I was doing at Bloomreach, because for them also they didn't have a knowledge manager before I came along, and for me it was a new role. So it was a very good learning experience. So that's how I transitioned from technical writing to knowledge management, and yeah, so that's my journey.
yeah.
About
Like I said, quite a journey. And now that you mentioned how you found knowledge management, it sounds like a steep learning curve for you. And I believe that that curve is now you have reached the peak of that curve now.
yes,
And yeah,
yeah. Now I'm Yeah, so it was so when I started working as a knowledge manager at Bloomreach, it was so I had this a whole new uh, avenue of stuff to explore.
yeah.
So basically, knowledge management works on principles of KCS, which is knowledge centric services. It is a
Hmm.
more operational part of a business where it is a very fast evolving dynamic environment. KCS is where knowledge is used to service everyone, whoever is the audience is, that is. So it depends on where you are doing the knowledge management. in my previous role at Bloomreach, I was a part of the operations team or the support part of the operations team. So our audience was, of course, the customer who was using our products, and our the trigger for us to create content was incidents, customer tickets or incidents. It was not. So the clear difference is for technical writing, we get all our inputs from product changes or product features that come out, right? That is how changes in product documentation is triggered. But for knowledge management, first of all, it is more incident based, more customer centric, more user centric, and also it is very fast changing all the time. So that's one of the major differences. The second difference is um, product documentation is very content heavy. So we are the content creators. As technical writers, we are the primary content creators. We get all the information from different sources and we create the content. But as knowledge managers, what we do is we get the content created by the SME, and then we just manage it on the platform, maintain it on the platform. And there are other processes, of course. There's feedback involved. There's a lot of data verification involved. Uh, what is the usage of the knowledge that we have on our platform versus how it is affecting, like, are we getting the less, are the ticket numbers less in a certain topic? That's how we
Mhm.
measure effectiveness in knowledge management. So those are the
Okay.
key differences. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of things happening there. So to
Yeah.
summarize, how would you explain knowledge management? Just to summarize, you spoke about tickets or incidents that are logged by customers. So that so customers, I believe, could be someone internal to the organization or could be product
Yes.
users as well,
External.
right? Yeah. So
Yes. So
how would you summarize it?
so it's more, I would say, triggers by the customer need. You assess the customer need, what you have, then you modify it according to the customer need and give it back to them. Again, they give you feedback saying, hey, so I see this you've created for us. It is
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling part of our needs, but this is the feedback. And then we go back again,
Okay.
change it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the primary cycle that we have. And from the other part, we get, of course, it cannot just be a stagnant piece of stagnant platform with stagnant
Mm-hmm.
information. It gets updated because of
Mm-hmm.
product features update and all that as well. But that is also what we get from the SMEs. So the subject
Mm-hmm.
matter experts in knowledge management, they actually create the content. We just manage the content. We just manage all the process behind the content. So that's
Okay.
knowledge management in a nutshell.
Okay. So, what I understood is when you are a technical writer, you create some content and it remains there as it is. Still, something is enhanced in the product for a particular feature or a new feature is added, say. Or if there is a ticket specific to a certain part of that feature. Whereas knowledge management is content based, but it is more heavily dependent on your customers' needs. And so you can call it probably need basis serving of content.
Yeah.
Um, okay.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's now I get it. Why you had mentioned to me that it is knowledge management is quite a natural progression if you want to
Yeah.
move away from technical writing to some other field. All right, so you spoke a lot about a lot of things. You spoke about analytics. You spoke about feedback from your customers or whoever
Yeah.
is your
Yeah.
user. Then you talked
Yeah.
about a need basis content serving. So if you had to name three skills that are absolutely needed to be a successful knowledge manager, what would those be? Because what you said covers a lot of ground, but what are the must haves?
Yeah. Well, if I could think of three skills, yeah, stakeholder management is very important as a knowledge manager.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as technical writers, also we reach out to a lot of people, follow up, and get content. But stake here as a knowledge manager, you are juggling a lot of processes. There is feedback. There is
Mm-hmm.
normal change oriented content updates. There can also be some needs, triggered by the customers, the readers. So you are handling a lot of stakeholders as a knowledge manager, and that is very
Yeah.
important to know when to prioritize which stakeholder and how to manage that flow.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Second would be to be extremely data driven. You have to look what your usage data is telling you, and
Mm-hmm.
it's although you get a lot of feedback from your users, the usage data is also very important, because ground level users may not be may not be very ahead with providing you feedback. Sometimes people withhold feedback, so that is where the
Right.
data comes into the picture. And the third would be, I don't know if this is a skill, but you have to be very change oriented or very dynamic. You have
Uh-huh.
to be you have to be okay with having constant changes coming in every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you cannot like have a list of tasks and you just expect to finish those on a Monday and Tuesday, and then not expect additional things to be added. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to be very dynamic with that. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So then, first was relationship building with your stakeholders, and for technical writers, I see that people struggle with this aspect especially because and the other thing is technical writers probably get to interact with their customer end rarely, whereas I
Yeah.
see yeah, from what you have described so far, knowledge managers interact a lot with the actual consumers of your content.
Yeah.
Second
Yeah.
thing that you mentioned was being proactive and data driven. So even before you get feedback, you have to be proactive, use analytics, and probably serve even before a need is expressed. And then
Yeah.
third,
Yeah.
you mentioned a very important thing. I think this is important for technical writers also to be change oriented, because I have been in that boat where I used to get annoyed when people used to send me last minute changes. Okay, today is the release, but we forgot to tell you this, or this is the feedback.
Yeah.
So I used to be annoyed, but yeah, I've grown. I've grown up. So, so I believe this skill I see is a common ground between knowledge
Yeah.
management, but like you said, it is more pronounced in knowledge management. Um,
Yeah.
so you mentioned about learning business administration in a very different setup. You completed some of it in India, and then you moved to Netherlands. So and after that you were looking for roles in product management. So did doing an MBA help you with knowledge management? How do you think that it is important to uh, learn leadership and business administration, so that you can understand your customers better?
Yeah, so I would say that it is extremely necessary to have a business degree for knowledge
Mm-hmm.
management. But as I mentioned, my story, how I came up
Yeah.
into this knowledge management role, it was because I was looking for something else and this happened. This has been always
Mm-hmm.
my story so far. I have been looking for something else and then something else better, something that is much better, but much suited for me happens. So, well, a business degree is not have some ideas of how a
Mm-hmm.
business, a software company, or any kind of company work different different sections of an organization, how they work, have a more holistic view.
Mhm.
So every company is different, of course, but to it takes time, depending on different individuals, to understand
Mhm.
what is the holistic view. So I would
Mhm.
say having a business degree helps you to accelerate that understanding when you join a new organization. But if you have experience, like good amount of experience, um,
Mhm.
in any field, then I think that's good enough. Yeah. And
Mhm.
leadership, I
Okay.
would say, if you're managing a team, then yeah, of course,
Mhm.
then
Okay.
that also can
Got
be
it.
acquired through experience. Yeah.
Yeah, got it, got it. So, you mentioned about having a lot of experience, but I have, I mean, I got to know about knowledge management only when you mentioned it. As in, I knew that there is something called knowledge management, but I have not had any acquaintances or friends or colleagues in knowledge management uh, till I saw that you are doing it. So, yeah. So, how does that other experience help, or is it necessary, because you didn't have any experience in knowledge management and you are doing you got into it, so how does that help, having a lot of experience?
Experience, I mean, in the sense of any kind of experience. Like if you have worked in
Mm-hmm.
any role in three or two or three different kinds of organization, maybe you've worked in a bigger organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like I worked in TCS, I knew how it, like I kind of have an idea what kind of how does a organization that big work.
Mm-hmm.
Then well, I've worked with startups, I have worked with mid-sized companies, so you kind of get an idea which
Mm-hmm.
how different how different departments in different organization function. And in any role, if you have that view, you have to be really open-minded to see it, like
Yeah,
have an holistic view. You
true.
cannot just be like, yes, this is my work, I'm going to do this part only, I'm not going to look at anything else. Then in that case it will be very difficult for you to actually understand going forward how
True.
stuff work. Yeah, you have to be very
True.
open, see everything what's happening. So any kind of experience, I would say, not specific to knowledge management.
Knowledge management, got it. So I think that should be that is how it should be. One has to be open minded to look around, understand how your company works, how is your business happening, and yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely helps when you transition. So I think that's what played a very important part in your transition, because you had worked in so many different genres of companies, and then you had a view in TCS. You mentioned you work on some marketing collaterals also, and then uh, at Seclor it was a startup, so you were the first one there. So uh, and then you I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the first company that you worked at Netherlands, Bloom. I'm really sorry. Yeah,
Bloomreach, yeah,
Bloombridge.
no problem, no
So
problem.
there you were the first one. So now I get it what you mean when you say experience matters. So, given all of this information, what are the typical tasks that you do in a day? What does a knowledge manager do? Say it's just a plain old typical day, not where you have received probably 10 incidences about something. Just a typical day.
Okay, so at booking, I'm really new right now, so I don't have a very typical day
Hmm.
yet. So I would give you an
Okay.
idea of how it was in Bloomreach. Well, my typical day would start with going to our case management system. That's
Hmm.
where we used to see the customer tickets, incidents
Hmm.
that product issues that customers log.
Hmm.
So what happened was our in support engineers, they used to analyze these tickets, and if they found something that needed to be created into an article, like if this incident, this thing was created into an article, a page in our knowledge base, then we would avoid such kinds of tickets. So this was the question they asked themselves and tagged those tickets for me. and provided all the information about the tickets, about the incident. Like, yes, this was the incident, this was the environment in which it happened, this was the solution, some other alternative solution. And then if there were links in the product documentation, they would provide that
Mm-hmm.
as well. So my typical day was going through all the tickets that were raised, because we worked globally. So we had offices in the US, in India also. So there were a bunch of tickets when I opened up here, and analyzing those, then moving them forward through the different process of, yes, connecting with the SME, saying that, is this right? Is this information right? Getting it reviewed in, once or twice, depending on the severity of the incident. Of course, we had a lot of processes behind all of that. So that was one of the tasks that I did. The other task every day was to open my dashboard,
Mm-hmm.
dashboard, and see what kind of usage we are looking at today. And if there was some, surprising activity, if it dipped too much, if it is up too much, stuff like that, and to find out why.
Mm-hmm.
So my job was to reach out to the product team asking, hey, was there like a release today? What, or
Mm-hmm.
asking the support team, like, was there a P1 today? Like, is there a huge incident that happened because of which there is a lot of traffic, and our knowledge base was housed,
Mm-hmm.
was on the same platform as the product documentation. So we had that combined analytics. We, of course, differentiated it according to product documentation and knowledge base. But yeah, so that's how my day went mostly. And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, sometimes some knowledge sharing sessions, conducting knowledge sharing sessions between teams, between different product teams. So yeah, those kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Okay. So you work alone and you also work with the product teams. But who typically in this process of getting a need, receiving a need and serving that need, typically in this process, who all are involved apart from you? You mentioned engineers, but
Support
what about
engineers.
product? Yeah, support engineers. Uh,
So product teams, I would say, when it is the review that comes in. So
mhm,
uh, the need for knowledge articles were not just from the incidents. We used to get requests
mhm,
from professional services teams, also technical services teams, who were
okay.
more uh, customer facing. Yeah, so this customer is asking these questions during the integration or implementation. Maybe we can create an FAQ so that
Okay.
next
Yeah.
time when a similar customer comes up for during their implementation or integration, they can just go on to their FAQ, or we can just give them the link to the FAQ, and their answers,
Mhm,
questions are answered. So
mhm.
we used to get a lot of requests from different teams as well, professional services teams mostly.
Okay. All right. So see, you mentioned professional services, you mentioned support engineers, then you mentioned product team also. These three teams are so diverse in their mindsets and the way they work. How do you ensure that you build a working relationship with them? Because to have this needs have a need served successfully, I'm sure a collaboration with everyone is needed. It's not just that okay, PSG is giving me this need, so I have to just cater to
Yeah.
their need. Ultimately that would be used by the product team also, and if there is something coming up in that say FAQ, so support engineers would probably know first, or the implementation engineers would uh, get that kind of request. So uh, how did you manage all these relationships?
Well, I will not lie, it was very difficult.
Uh-huh.
It is, as everything when you begin with, it is very difficult, especially when it is a new role for everyone, for me, for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I would talk more about Bloomreach because that's where I yeah, so that's more prominent in my memory right now, because at this in my new role, I'm 1 month old, so I don't really have many
Mm-hmm.
impressionable examples right now. So at
Mm-hmm.
Bloomreach, I would say it was very difficult in the beginning. but it's more about how you create a working relationship is you have to empathize. There are
Mm-hmm.
two ways to see it. Firstly, you have to, when you are interacting with these people, you have to empathize with their situation, how they are working, because of course they are product team or support engineers or PSG. They are not going to look
Mm-hmm.
at how PSG is working. So product team is
Correct.
not going to think about what PSG is doing or support is doing. They're just going to look at their stuff. So you
Correct.
have to first empathize, and then along with that, you need to have a very bird's eye view, a very holistic view of everything. You cannot limit yourself to a certain view when you're talking to a certain set of people. So you have to be
Right.
like having like two sets of, when you work with two screens sometimes, so you have to
Yeah.
have these two sets of screens open in your head. Like, okay, they are saying this, but when we look at the entire picture, it is this. So then you figure out how you can convince them to uh, you know
Mm-hmm.
walk or meet you in the middle, because
Mm-hmm.
then it is very difficult. You have to first offer something from your end. So
Absolutely.
I'm ready to do this. Then
Uh-huh.
when they see this, and they see that you're empathizing, they will also meet you in the middle. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
how.
absolutely. This is so important, because unless we offer up that, okay, we see you, it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult, and I believe that once these kind of relationships are formed, these kind of working relationships are formed, going forward, it becomes easy for a lifetime as long as you are
Yeah.
there in that organization. So relationship building again looks
Yeah.
like a common denominator here between technical
Yeah.
writing and knowledge management as well. So, a lot of work happening in knowledge management in Akshi. At the end of the day, how are there any specific parameters or factors? You mentioned analytics. Of course, you would analyze the usage, but are there, apart from that, are there any parameters to measure the success of your say knowledge management strategy, or how you have resolved the need?
Well, at the end of a certain time period, when you look at what kind of incidents that we see month over month,
Mm-hmm.
and that trend, if it matches with what you have been working on the content or the knowledge need, then if there is a match there, then of course there is a certain
Mm-hmm.
amount of success. If there is not a if it's a mismatch, then of course it's a learning situation. You just learn from it and go
Mm-hmm.
ahead, change some processes, probably see what is working, see what is not. So that's what matters. And also, another success factors is how much the knowledge base is used in different other components like trainings,
Mm-hmm.
onboardings, customer and employee onboarding, learning experiences, all of this. So what is, apart from the page views, what are the other usages of your knowledge? It
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't just be that yes, I'm answering a customer question, I'm answering a user
Mm-hmm.
question. It should also be how else is this useful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So, like you mentioned, bird's eye view, that applies here as well. A lot of comparison and a lot of, even if it is not a tool that is being used to measure success, you need to combine all the information that you have, say data or your knowledge of what is being served in your content. Um, yeah. So, sounds like a tough job.
If you if you consider it a tough job, it will be a tough job. But I find it
Uh-huh.
very interesting. I find it very sometimes
Interesting.
when I
Yeah.
get a sometimes when I get a lot of testimonial from someone, like, yeah, hey,
Mm-hmm.
so this part of your knowledge base was really helpful in
Mm,
onboarding these customers. So that was really nice. That's really nice. It's a good feeling.
yeah.
Like, yeah, I did something
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So the work, it's a lot of work. More than
Mm-hmm.
just writing content, it's a lot of other kind of work, like
Mm-hmm.
coordinating and following up, and looking at dashboards. Like you have 2 3 dashboards opened up at any point of time on your screen, understanding what is happening, like
Mm-hmm.
what is the usage, and how are we tackling all the incidents that are coming in. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. It's a lot interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And you know what, Enakshi, my mind is bursting up with the follow-up questions, and so is the chat box. So I
Okay.
have been getting pings after pings in the chat box, a lot of questions. So we'll take a pause here before we move to the next part, and we'll take a few questions so that we don't end up breaking the link.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
Kritika. So
sure.
yeah.
let me help with some of those questions, because there are different type of questions, but some of those came up as per the conversation and the responses from Enakshi. So I think Vishali Kulkarni, she asks, what is exactly KCS? Is it a consortium, and what is the function?
So KCS is it's I don't remember. It is a consortium. There is a certification for it. I have not done it yet, but it there is a certification. If you want to go for it, you need to have certain amount of session timing. Like they will conduct some sessions, and then you have to appear for an examination. It's like any certification. KCS is knowledge centric services or knowledge centric support, where the main asset for supporting or servicing the user is knowledge. So you get a question. It's more like I will give you an example. If you are a customer support agent on the chat, so you get a question from customer. What do? You are not going to run around asking the answer to 10 different people around you. You're going to open your resources, your knowledge resources, and then look for the answer there. And this can be product documentation, of course, but product documentation is more like a story. It tells you what the product does, how you can go about it. But if it's an incident that needs an answer right now, you may want to look into some more incident based content, which is like, yeah, so this is the if a customer faces this issue, this is the answer, or this is the solution, this is how you go about it, in very short. So a typical knowledge base, which is based on KCS, have articles that is not more than one. You don't have to. It should not be scrollable. That is one of the principles that we have. It should not scroll down to a long page.
Interesting.
It should be visible in one single page. This is the problem, and this is the solution. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Anakshi. Another point I think Akash had when we were talking about multiple processes. So he just asked that, can you elaborate about some of those processes?
Well, the first process, so there are processes and sub processes. So, first process I will talk about is when you get a request for knowledge articles. It can be from a support engineer who's working with the customer. It can be from a technical services person or professional services person. It can also be from product teams. So, you need to have different processes in places for these requests coming in, and you have to monitor that as a knowledge manager. It's not just creating yeah, so this is the request for content. You ask the SME for the content, get it reviewed, and that's it. You have to take care of the entire process and coordinate every part of it. And that's the thing I was talking about process. This is a one part of process, like getting the content. Then there are feedback processes that you get feedback for your articles. Yeah, so yeah, so there's this incident based article on our knowledge base, but this is very outdated. Okay, so this is very outdated. This needs to be updated. So they trigger a process. So lot of processes come into picture accordingly, and then you have to report what's the success of your knowledge base. Then how do you find out, how do you identify knowledge articles that can be that can be put into onboarding. So a lot of stuff happens behind that, a lot of
Great.
processes.
Yeah, I think, and of course, all the processes we cannot discuss in detail right now. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
No.
think that should give a good, overview to Akash. And based on the discussion, Shrutika, can I go ahead and ask? Although there are
Yes,
many
yes, you can
questions, I'm
ask
just
a
trying
few
to
more.
relate with the discussions. Okay, the rest we can
Yeah,
ask
yeah, you
later. So
can
one more
ask.
question I would like to
Yes.
ask right now. This is related to usage dashboard. So it has two parts. Vishakha is just trying to understand when you say usage dashboard. Do you mean usage as in how many people are reading the articles and their feedback? Do you mean that?
Well, feedback depends on what tool you're using as your content management system. So I'll give you an example about Bloomreach.
Uh,
So
uh,
we have,
she wants to understand what do you mean by exactly usage dashboard? What do you mean by that?
yeah, yeah, I'm getting to that. So usage dashboard was where we saw the page views. Then we broke it down according to region and what was this, what was the average session timing, or what was the user journey. So they searched for something, they clicked on something, or they just exited. So we had event based analytics also to see what was the user journey, how many clicks did we get, search hits, search misses. So search hit is a search and then a click, which we classify as a search hit. That means that they found what they were looking for, or multiple hits. And a search miss is search event, and then another search event, and continuously like that, and then exit. So we analyze that, like did they find what they were looking for in a broad perspective. So these things comprises of usage dashboard. I see her question here. Their feedback is more of the CMS, in the CMS that you can collect votes for your articles, or feedback comments, or edit suggestions, stuff like that. So that's feedback.
Mhm.
Okay.
I hope I've answered the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope that answers another question, which is related to that. Lingesh, you asked how do you get uh, how do you get what is it called? How to get insights on analytics of docs usage data? Could you please elaborate? I assume probably you just explained that.
Yeah, I did that.
Lingesh,
Um,
does that
uh,
help?
or
Does
I can
Lingesh?
elaborate.
Okay,
It
please go ahead.
depends. A lot of nuances actually. It depends on what analytics tools you're using. If it is sophisticated enough to give you what you really want, there are very basic analytics tools that will give you just the search keywords that were used a lot, top page views, or zero results search keywords. So you can start working with those basics. But if you want to see what the user journey was on your knowledge base, that's where you get these event based analytics, which measures, yeah, how many searches and then how many clicks, how many, if there was a click or not, if there was an exit. So stuff like that. So
Mhm.
that's very gives a lot of insight into how you are really helping the reader with your content, with your knowledge.
And Shrutika, can I just ask one more question here about the tools only?
Yeah, yeah,
So
sure,
tools,
sure. I
because
think that is a follow-up question, Puni, that's much needed at this point.
yeah, because Enakshi touched the tools. So
Yes.
Akash just wants
Yeah.
some names. Like, are there any specific tools used for analytics?
Google Analytics is the best tool, I would say, so far. I mean, I've worked with technical documentations and I've worked with knowledge bases, and Google Analytics is very, very useful, but you need to set it up really well. Um, Although it seems very, on the surface, it seems very easy to set up. I have tried my best so many times. it is difficult,
Yeah.
but it's always better to set it up with the help of with an expert who is certified in Google Analytics. And once you have that set up, then it's magical.
So basically, for analytics, you have those kind of tools, and especially when you talk about knowledge management specifically. So, what kind of tools generally, I mean, probably you are using, or is it used like is service, for example, ServiceNow or anything else? That's one of those questions.
ServiceNow, I think, is more like a case management tool. I think, if I'm not wrong, I've never worked with ServiceNow. So yeah, so it starts with a case management tool where you you find, you see the incidences, or you see the issues, product issues. You pick those up, and then it can be either embedded in the case management tool itself. Like some case management tools, they have their own separate space or platform for knowledge base. But like Zendesk, yeah, Zendesk has a space for their own knowledge base. Even Salesforce, I think. It's Salesforce, because I have used Salesforce as case management, but not as knowledge management. But yeah, so as a case management tool, and then there can be a CMS. So the knowledge base, or the articles, knowledge articles, are based on a CMS, a normal CMS that we use for any CMS that we use for technical writing. It can be with the product documentation itself, or can be hosted on a separate uh, CMS. But I would always recommend to have your knowledge base on the same as product documentation, because when a customer is looking for an answer, they have a choice of either reading the product documentation or the knowledge base, depending on their immediate need. Like, what is it? Do they need a lot of information? Do they want to read through what the product is offering, or they want to solve a problem? So yeah, it's always recommended to have it on the same platform.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Great. So, Shritika, I will take a few more questions.
Sorry, Puneet, we lost your voice, I think, for
I
a few
said,
seconds.
okay, so
Hmm.
I'm saying we do have a few more questions, but I think you can go ahead. We will come back to those questions later.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I think this is going to snowball into a full-fledged workshop on knowledge management now. So there is still a part of our conversation where what the reason this workshop, sorry, not workshop. See, I'm already calling it a workshop. Yeah. So this interview came into picture because of a few questions that I have been asked a lot of times, and we are yet to touch that part. So let's move ahead, Puneet, and we'll take rest of the questions at the end then.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So, Enakshi, now we'll move to the most awaited part, because the post that I had put on LinkedIn, that was the trigger for this interview. And the post was put up because I have been asked, especially after the pandemic, I have been asked this question multiple times, that how do I transition? How do I know I have to transition? So I have not transitioned from one profile to another, or one profession to another. So that's the reason why I had put up that post. And so that's what I wanted to understand from you as well. You mentioned at the beginning that by the time you had worked on product management a little bit in Seclore, you knew that you wanted to move away from technical writing. So what was the trigger point? And how did you know that you wanted to move away? What fueled that thought?
Well, um, it was just that I wanted to try something different. I had done technical writing for a long, I wouldn't say long time, but yeah, about 8 years, and I was actually very keen to explore what else is out there. What can I do more?
Hmm.
And that's what triggered me. And another part of the trigger was, yeah, working very closely with the product management team. Even in Golden Source, we used to work with business analysts, and that really interested me a lot.
Yeah.
When we were working with business analysts, how they are I think I also did write a few stories and all that, help them out, story writing
Yeah.
and all that. It was very interesting.
True. Yeah.
And And that's I saw it in a more you know detailed way in secular. But I was a content specialist
Mm-hmm.
there. I wasn't, but I was working in the product management team, so I was working very closely with the product
Mm-hmm.
managers. It really interested me, and I really wanted to explore that. So that was my second trigger to change my
Mm-hmm.
profession. Yeah, my
Got it.
career. Yeah,
So yeah, basically the the excitement to learn new things, and the you
yeah,
know what do you say, the will to explore what lies beyond, right?
yeah, yeah,
So now that you have transitioned, okay, you have into you have moved to knowledge management. What next? What next? As in, what is the path that a knowledge manager follows? Given that you have transitioned from writing, then you took up higher studies, and then you moved to knowledge management. So, what path do you have in mind?
I don't really have anything in mind right now for myself, because honestly, this was never a plan. I have never planned ahead, this ahead in life. Um, I just feel that I should be happy and content with what I'm doing right now. That is all. That has always been my goal. I never had
Mm-hmm.
like lofty ambitions of being a CEO or something in my future or something like that. I my entire it's not an entire career. 10 years is hardly anything. It's just that all the time that I have worked and I've studied, everything was more focused on having doing something that made me happy. That waking up when you wake up in the morning, you have an objective in mind. Yeah, so this is what I'm going to do today
Mm-hmm.
at work. So that's how I function. What next? I have not thought about it. Right now, I'm really enjoying the role that I'm doing, and
Mm-hmm.
learning a lot, meeting a lot of very interesting people through very interesting knowledge managers who have had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of experience. I mean, this is a role that I've heard about in the last 2 years, but it has been there since a long time.
Long time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was recently in conversation with this terrific lady who has been a knowledge manager for 13 years. So that is very impressive. She has done a lot of
Wow.
impressive things. So there's a lot to learn there. So I
Mm-hmm.
am excited about that part. And profession wise, if anyone wants to move from knowledge management, like moves to knowledge management and then wants to move ahead, I would say change management is a good progression
Mm-hmm.
also from there, because
Okay.
it has a lot in common. Yeah,
Yeah. Got it. Got it. So basically, learning and new, learning something new, and then learning some more. That's the path that you have in mind right now.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and not many people can say that in actually. Most people, what they say is, okay, I want to become a manager in 2 years, or a senior manager in the next 3 years. But what I loved your answer on this, that all you have not planned to become a CEO or something, but to have something that wants you to get up in the morning and be excited about it. So not many
yeah,
people can say that. So
yeah.
I love, I absolutely love this answer. I think this is the best answer of the whole conversation. So there is one question in the chat box. I would like to take that up at this point. So someone has asked, I think it's Lingesh. So you mentioned about being happy about what you do. So he is asking, how is the work-life balance for the role, given the basis on the incidents and tickets?
Work life balance is subjective to a lot of other things apart from just the
Mm-hmm.
role. It primarily, I would say, where you are in the world. If you look at the work culture in India, or I don't know, I'm not very sure. I've only worked in India and Netherlands, but it depends a lot on work culture, how your peers
Mm-hmm.
or people around you um, take the work life balance seriously. So right now my work life balance is really good here, because it's a very common practice here not to talk about work after 5 p.m., which something I really like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a strictly
Yeah.
9 to 5 conversation. It's a strictly 9 to 5. Yeah, I'm working 9 to 5. I'm completely involved in my work 9 to 5, and then after 5, it's my life. So my work-life balance is really good here, and yeah, I don't know what knowledge managers in different countries or other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Also depends on your organization also, where uh, what kind of work culture your organization encourages. So depends completely on that.
Mhm. Yeah. So, Lingesh, I hope that answered your question. So, to summarize, work-life balance is quite subjective to your company's culture, to your country's culture, and yeah, you may have to, extend. In India, it is a very common practice to keep extending your day based on the
Yeah.
need. But like Enakshi mentioned, Netherlands has a culture of 9 to 5, and they stick to it. So, yeah, it's subjective, Lingesh. So, I have the most awaited question next for you, Inakshi. After we announced about these these interview sessions, I got this question from a lot of people that you moved from technical writing to some other profession, and you call it a natural progression. But what exactly was it that helped you in knowledge management? So how did being a technical writer earlier help or support your transition to knowledge management? Or and then a follow up to that, what are the exact if you have to name a few, what is that? What is something that you applied to knowledge management that you brought from technical writing?
Well, a very user-centric approach, I would say, that I brought
Mm-hmm.
from technical writing to knowledge management. Um, n- so it is much, I would say, it is much difficult for technical writers to create, to understand users' mindset, and put that so much amount of information in a very readable, very user friendly format. In knowledge management is different. It's just, it has to be in certain format. You just take those part and you create an article. Any extra information, go to the product documentation, and the product documentation is created by the technical writers. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what I bring from technical writing, is a very user centric approach, understanding the user need, the readers, what they really want
Mm-hmm.
to uh, read from your whatever you're writing. So yeah, content management, of course, it really helps the
Yeah.
entire aspect of it.
Yeah, so and I guess that it also helps being a technical writer, because you know what is the thought process behind the content that is already available in your documentation. So probably it helps
Yeah.
you serve knowledge needs better.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and then regarding the transition again, so most people are afraid to leave their cocoon, their safety net, and their comfort zone. That's one of the toughest challenge that people face. They decide to transition, they also transition, but then there is so much to learn and unlearn also, that they find it very
Yeah.
challenging, right? So what was the biggest challenge that you faced in transition, or was there a challenge that you had a difficulty in?
Yeah, I absolutely faced a lot of challenges because I came from a certain work mindset in a completely
Hmm.
different country. That is a different case of scenario, of course. But the challenge was, as I said, when I started as a knowledge manager, it was a new thing for me and also a new thing for the organization. So I didn't have a lot of support. I had to read up a lot of things to understand what I'm going to
Yeah.
do. You have to be extremely open to learn. You have to be extremely humble to understand that others might know better than you and learn from them,
Hmm.
regardless of how much experience you have. 20 years, 25 years, if you're moving into something new, you have to be extremely open to learning from others, from younger people, from newer people, and make mistakes. Of course, making mistakes is the part of it, but instead of just regretting all the time, learning from those mistakes and moving on.
Yeah.
So these I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, understanding what am I doing, how am I supposed to do it. But listening to how people work around you and what exactly are the needs, that was really helpful for me. Yeah.
Mhm. All right. So I have my timekeeper buzzing me because I think we are running out of time. So I have just two more questions for you, Enakshi. From my set, I want to understand those things from you, and then we'll, if time permits, we'll quickly go through the other new questions that we have received. So you mentioned a lot of learning and being humble about understanding things from others and having an open mind. So how I understand that you value learning a lot. You have to value
Yeah.
this journey. You have to go through this journey. So to get to that point where you can say that, okay, I was new to this, but now I'm comfortable with this new profession. But there is so much of information available these days. um, you know uh, there are so many online universities offering courses, and there are so many blogs being written. How does one filter out the noise and pick what exactly is needed? Because see, this is going to be a new profession. Say I transition from technical writing to knowledge management. How did you manage filtering out all the noise?
So it helped to have that consortium in place, the place where you get your
Mm-hmm.
KCS certification. They have the legit
Mm-hmm.
information that you need for knowledge management. That's the first reference where I landed. So it was my manager who referred my manager from a previous organization who referred me to that consortium's
Mm-hmm.
page. I read through a lot of stuff. And then how
Mm-hmm.
you filter noise is, well, it is very intuitive actually. When you
Mm-hmm.
if there is a very legitimate source of information already available, then you have an idea, like, yeah, this is how it is. And then when you read other blogs, other information websites, then you find that maybe some things that are very organizational specific. um,
Mm-hmm.
I would honestly, I have come across a lot of material online that is more um, you know uh, experience to experience specific, like someone who's writing about their exact experience. It may not apply to someone else. It is not very generic,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to have that kind of intuition, like, yeah, so this is not very generic, this is very specific. And it helps when you have a very legitimate source of information. For knowledge management, yeah, KCS, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, is the best place to find that information and then accordingly apply
Mm-hmm.
it to your needs.
Yeah, so that plays a very important part, because one needs to know what is the right place to look at to be able to move forward. All right, so enough of the heavy questions. I have a trick question for you. So you mentioned about being content and happy with what you are doing now. So what excites you the most about your work now? What is that one thing that excites you the most?
Right now it's well, I'm in a new organization right now. I joined in
Mm-hmm.
February, so it is what excites me right now. Again, coming back to learning, waking up and like, yeah, okay, so what is new today? What is new that
Uh-huh.
I'm going to find out here today? And I'm going to learn something from my teammates. I'm going to learn something from these people that I'm talking to every day. So
Mm-hmm.
that really excites me. Having something to do and learning something. That's really exciting for me every day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. So that's all. I could condense into the session of say 1 hour. There are a lot of questions in my mind, but in the interest of time, we have to put a stop today. But before we move to the Q&A, we open up the forum for questions. What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is looking to transition from technical writing to any other field?
Well, be mindful of what really interests you, first of all. First and foremost, it might not be very visible to you right now, but like I said, for me, when I was doing my master's, analytics was a surprise. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, this is interesting. I mean, I knew I liked dabbing with Excel a lot, but going further
Mhm.
than Excel and how data actually can be really used in day-to-day life. So that was really interesting. So you have to be very open, very mindful of what really interests you, and then move ahead
Mhm.
around that. Think around what can be the role around that, what can be the profession around that. If it comes around back to technical writing, then I guess you're happy where you are. This is your calling. But if something else is interesting, then of course be open to learn new things, be humble, and then you'll find your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's some very great advice, because see, it boils down to the basics, right? Be open minded. That's not a very specific thing that is needed for making a career in a certain field, but it is the bottom line. You have to be open.
Yeah.
When we are studying engineering, for example, we don't know what kind of job we are going to land, but we are open minded and we are excited about it. So I
Yeah.
think that's the approach that one has to keep in mind. Be open minded, be humble about it, and keep learning. All right. So, Enakshi, thank you very, very, very much. It was I it this session was beyond what I had thought. The ground that will cover, I thought that it will be limited to a certain area, but you covered so much more than that, and the kind of questions that we have been getting, it shows that how interesting this conversation has been. So before we leave, Puneet, do we have time to take one or two more questions?
We have a few questions left, but I think that is just related to knowledge management. If Inakshi
Mm,
can answer, there are a few questions like
Yeah,
mhm.
sure.
which courses would you suggest if someone is starting this role?
If there's some, go to KCS Consortium website, read everything they have on their website, all the material. It is always updated, and they come up with different new stuff, new ideas, so new frameworks. So that is very that's the first point I would suggest anyone to go to understand what knowledge management is in detail. So KCS is the basis, and then depends on what interests you. Are you more a process-oriented person? Then I would suggest um, do some ITIL stuff, operational stuff if you want to. Or if you're more into content, then of course you guys all are terrific technical writers. That will help you there as well. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. Other question is like, is there a separate team of writers that work on the incident-based articles other than tech writers?
Yeah, so there are no separate team of writers, or there are no tech writers in knowledge management. There are SMEs, subject matter experts, who provide you with the content, because this content is very to the point, a one pager. It can be created by an SME, and you are just doing a sense check, a quality check, and publishing it. So it's not, there are no separate team of writers, or rather, as a knowledge management, you are not doing most of the writing yourself. Maybe sometimes if there is something very complicated that needs to be produced in a very user friendly format, reader friendly format, that's where your writing skills come into picture. But it's mostly quality checks that
Mhm.
you do as a knowledge manager.
Okay, one last question. I think I will take, and after that, if there are any other questions, I will ask people to be patient and get in touch. So Sandeep asks, in the role of KAME, what do you do to improve the access to the information required by any internal user? Can you share a use case?
Can you repeat that, please? Sorry.
In
I
the role of KM, what do you do to improve the access to the information required by an internal user? Can you share a use case?
improve the access. So there are multiple ways. You can advertise that you have a knowledge base. There are different avenues. You can do like newsletters, but nowadays emails are really getting lost in the inboxes. People don't really look at emails anymore. uh, uh, and I think it's more about what if you have a IM service that you have like a what is that? We use Workplace. There are other IMs which gives you the provision of publishing newsletters into groups or yeah, things like that, like educate, like have sessions, have knowledge sharing sessions to your internal users. That's what we did in Bloomreach when we piloted the knowledge base. That's what we did. We did sessions with different teams, different managers, that hey, so with us have we have this knowledge base which is incident based, which is very up to the point, which is, yeah, so this is the incident, this is the issue. You go, you search there, you get the answer, and this is how it can help you. So educating is one other way you can uh, improve the access with, and it is a continuous process. It cannot be done at the beginning and you just leave it at that. You have to do it
Mhm.
periodically to remind people that we have this resource here available that can be really helpful.
Great. So I think that's all we can take right now. There might be a few more questions, but we can probably discuss it later. So, in the
Okay,
interest of time, so thank you
Yeah.
so much, Enakshi. And that's all the question I have,
my
Shrutika. You
pleasure.
can go ahead and wind
Yeah, so I believe it is a Saturday evening, very, very well spent, and I'm glad we did this. Enakshi, thank you so much for putting that comment on my LinkedIn post, which resulted in this interview. Thank you so much, and yeah, this definitely will open up avenues for people looking to transition. So thank you, Enakshi, and yeah, thank you,